Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. I'm Andrea Sankey in Paris. For 6 years, the family of Franco-Colombian politician Ingrid Betancourt has fought to secure her release from captivity. She's been held by Colombia's FARC rebels since venturing into their territory during her Colombian presidential campaign in 2002. Her family's mission to free her from rebel hands is today more urgent than ever. Ingrid is reportedly very ill and in desperate need of a doctor's care. Joining me now to talk about Ingrid's increasingly desperate plight is her own sister, Astrid Betancourt. Astrid, thanks so much for joining us. Astrid, let's start then with where we are today. We've seen an ambitious offer of humanitarian assistance for your sister on behalf of France. Colombian authorities seem to be cooperating, and your family has issued a final plea to the FARC. So what do you expect to happen now?
Well, I think this is a very good initiative from the French government. Of course, nothing can be confirmed concerning my sister's real state of illness. But we know that, as we saw in the pictures we had from her on the late October the 24th, and with the testimony of the hostages who were liberated, who were free a few days ago, that she is very weak and that she needs a doctor. So even though it was not possible to confirm of the gossips that have been raising up lately, this initiative of the French government could perhaps provoke a reaction, a positive reaction from the FARC, and that's what we are expecting now. I think that the FARC know today that the whole world is looking to them, and that this is a very good occasion that the French government gives them in order to make that Ingrid can be saved. And at the same time, President Sarkozy said something very important, that the freedom of Ingrid by the FARC was the element that would provoke the initiation of a whole process that would lead to the humanitarian agreement for the whole prisoners that are in the hands of the FARC against all the guerrilleros that are in the prisons in Colombia. And that, of course, the next step would be with the international community to design a plan for peace in Colombia.
Let me ask you first why you think there has been no official response from the FARC thus far to France's offers and France's effort to provide humanitarian assistance to your sister?
Well, I think that, at first, the public offer of President Sarkozy was made public yesterday. As you know, President Sarkozy called President Uribe to ask him to retire the army from the zone that is the southeast of Colombia, where are supposed to be all the campamentos?
The camps.
All the camps where all the hostages are retained. President Uribe seems to be cooperating, but I suppose that the guerrilla needs to assure themselves that this retire of the army is really going to happen.
And do you think they can, knowing that just weeks ago the Colombian government killed their second-in-command with an unauthorized incursion into Ecuador? Do you think they'll trust the Colombian government now?
Well, I think that the confidence in Colombian government from the FARC is difficult to have. But with the help of the international community, this could be reached. On the other hand, as you might know, when the death of Raúl Reyes happened, the FARC communicated and said that despite this fact, they were encouraging the countries that were helping all the process to pursue the efforts towards a humanitarian agreement. So the analysis that comes out from that is that for the FARC, the death of Raúl Reyes was a war act. As well, there can be generals of the Colombian army that can be killed in this war, because we are in a war conflict in Colombia. This is not a war of terrorists. This is a place where you are two bands that are affronting each other.
It's a civil war.
It's a civil war.
Mm-hmm. Were you angry, though, when Colombia launched that operation, when Colombian authorities went into Ecuador, killed Raúl Reyes, and the Ecuadorians came back and said, thank you for sabotaging hostage negotiation efforts at this point?
Well, of course, I think that the Colombian government should have consulted with all the international community what they were going to do, because they knew that Raúl Reyes was one of the members of the secretariat of the FARC that was having conversations with the French and Swiss government.
Did you see that in any way as sabotage of those negotiations on behalf of the Colombian government, or no, you wouldn't go that far?
Well, I think that sabotage of negotiations, no, because there were not negotiations at that part of the time. There was going to be a meeting that was going to be held. And so, in fact, this, of course, make that meeting could not be held. But, as I said, the FARC today say that they want to keep on going on this effort of negotiating.
Astrid, whom do you have the most confidence in when it comes to negotiations? Hugo Chavez, perhaps?
Well, definitely the French government, and of course Hugo Chavez. The French government, because since the first day of my sister's kidnapping, French government has been beside us and trying to develop all efforts in order to free Ingrid. And because of Ingrid, the French government knew about the tragedy that was being lived by all the other hostages. So they have not. They have been developing huge efforts. But of course, President Chavez, who has a very good communication with the FARC, and he has made something that was impossible possible. When you think that a few months ago, we could have never expected unilateral freedoms from the FARC of hostages. And that happened at the beginning of this year. And this is because, in certain way, President Chavez told the guerrilla many things. I think one is that they had to be aware of the pressure of the international community. Second, because they had to know that after 44 years of struggling, they have not reached any political results.
Okay.
And third, because with the accompagnement,
The accompanying
of the President Chavez, the FARC can have the guarantee that if they go again in politics, members of the FARC won't be assassinated by the extreme right of Colombia, as that was the case in the late 80s, in the years 80, when 5,000 of members of the FARC were exterminated.
Okay. We're down to our final minutes, and there's so much I wanted to talk to you about. And one of the things, perhaps the saddest reports we've been hearing about your sister is not just her physical condition and the illnesses she suffers from. You've also been hearing that she's suffering abuse at the hands of other hostages, in addition to very poor treatment that she receives from the FARC, because of her escape attempts and her very strong character. What do you mean by that? Are you saying that other hostages actually resent her, those that are in captivity with her, resent her for being so strong, for attempting to escape, and perhaps the attention she's been given by the international community that they haven't received?
Well, what Luis Eladio Perez said, Luis Eladio was this hostage that was free 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he was 4 years in captivity besides my sister. he said that, of course, because he and my sister attempted to escape, they had been treated afterwards in much more severe conditions. That's, for instance, that they had their boots taken for a year and many other things. But something that he said too, and that is really very sad to listen, is that there were many jealousies inside all the people who were retained with Ingrid. And that, of course, you know, the officials of police and of army, not all of them, but some of them, there are men who have not seen a woman for 10 years. They are of very poor instruction level, and they had behaviors that were not of the dignity of a human being. But too, he said that people who were of the same social level, I would say, than my sister instructed, that is Consuelo and Clara, for instance, they also had very bad attitudes. It's not the time or the place to say what we were told they did, but my son, when he heard just some of those things, he said, that's for sure, Clara and Consuelo, they won't go to paradise. And I'm sure that this has been very, very hard for my sister to support. But I think that, you know, conditions of captivity have to make us see one thing. There are people who are able to have their dignity, their sense of humanity, their respect to the others in a very high way. I am very proud of my sister because this has been what she has been. Despite her weakness, she was able to help Luis Eladio and another one who were really in a very ill. But there are other people who have not that strength. Right. And my sister has made us a very beautiful gift. The other ones, there must be a forgiveness that will come afterwards.
Okay. Astrid, unfortunately, we are completely out of time for this edition of the interview. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. And our thoughts are with you.
I apologize for my bad
English,
English,
please don't.
Andrea.
Superior English. Thank you so much, Astrid. And thanks to our viewers, of course, for tuning in as well. That's all for tonight. Bonsoir.